2010 because they have held the spenders' feet to the fire. But unfortunately, the Senate is gridlocked. That's where the problem is. So there's no appropriations bills that have been passed by the Senate. They don't have a budget in 3 years. That is not sustainable.
Okay, guys, we're going to cut to our first commercial break, and before we do, last week we had a special trivia question. And here was the question. Almost 10% of us will do this in 2012. What is it? Anyone?
No idea.
Change insurance companies.
Oh.
Can you believe that? 10%, almost 10% of us.
Warren Buffett's betting on that with only Geico.
That's right. All righty, and congratulations, George in Walnut Creek. Okay, here is our first commercial break. Here's our first trivia question. And remember, the theme is uncle. Uncle, cry uncle. Okay, name this uncle who was portrayed by John Candy in the movies. In fact, as I remember correctly, I think the name of the movie was this.
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hoff of Pacific Private Money and Lou Botmal of LPL Financial. When we cut to the first commercial break, we asked this trivia question. Name this uncle who was portrayed by John Candy in the movies. Anyone?
Buck.
Uncle Buck. That is correct. Okay, we are in the studio here with Dan Roberts, who is running for Congress. And although he's running for on the Republican ticket, you're not actually a Republican. You're more of an independent.
Independent reformer.
My kind of guy. Okay, Lou, you had a great question you were going to ask him.
I just wanted to touch on real quick. 'Cause it's a polarizing issue, but the Obamacare and Medicare issues that are coming up. I know Republicans have a certain theory. You probably have your own. But what's really going on here, and how's this going to end up is really the question.
We don't know. You tell me who's going to win the presidency and the Senate, and I can give you some answers. But I start from a point that, let's go back to when we were discussing Obamacare. Really, insurance is a state's issue. It's not a federal government issue. It belongs with the states. Romney did something in Massachusetts which he's entirely able to do, and I think California should have the shot at it. One size fits all may not work. It's a state's issue.
Talking, there's another law that's been talked about a lot. People always hear the reference to Dodd-Frank, which was a huge bill full of tons and tons of new legislation that was passed a couple of years ago. And and I'm a hard money loan broker, and I know my particular business has been impacted severely by lots and lots of new regulations. And what's your thoughts on that? And what
Franken-Dodd,
what kind of
used to call it.
What kind of work would you do toward some of that legislation? I think many of the laws haven't even been written yet, based on some of what was passed in that huge bill.
I'll answer that by saying that the law has been written, but the regs have not been written.
That's
right?
The regulations. Yes.
Right. I'm a part and parcel of that because I work with the SEC and FINRA on this subject. So there's tens of thousands of pages of new regulations. All it's done is to increase the cost. It'll be passed on to the consumers eventually through the corporations or through taxations. So it's increased the size of the bureaucracy. One particular issue under Dodd-Frank is that they passed a lot of measures down to the SEC for rulemaking, right? One of which is the fiduciary rule, and I'm sure you're affected by this as well,
absolutely.
Right? And so they've tried to create a dual fiduciary. You can't be a dual fiduciary.
Can't serve two masters, right?
That's right. You can't wear the same hat at the same time. I underwrite bonds and I sell bonds retail. I cannot be a dual fiduciary on that. So it'll either take me out of the underwriting, which I would not like to do because I create product. I'm about capital formation in my business. But they have no idea about what a dual fiduciary is about. It came out of this Dodd-Frank Act. They had no idea.
So you mentioned you are a small business owner, but you're also a military veteran, and you're one of the few military veterans running for Congress these days. Isn't that true?
Oh, there in California, yes. Nationwide, no. But in this race, I'm the only veteran who ran in the primary, and I'm the only veteran running now. So the point is, my argument might be made that maybe somebody that wants to run, ought to qualify to run by serving our country before they run.
Well, not only that, but just having a businessman, the country is a business, basically. And I think you need a businessman to run the country. Are you a
I'll
businessman?
answer that, of course, and for 26 years I've owned my own firm. So if we need a country that, Congress, that can balance the budget, learn how to create real jobs, not government jobs, right?
Yeah.
And not more free money, those days are over, then you need a businessman. That's the point that I
But that's the
make.
thing is, you get these career politicians where their job is just to keep getting reelected.
Right,
And
fundraise.
Yeah, exactly. And you're not exactly like that.
No, I'm not, at my age, I'm a senior, so I'm on the same page as all seniors, but don't worry about term limits with me, you don't need it, I'm not gonna be there for 20 years, I don't think.
Are you in favor of the McCain reform on fundraising for campaigns?
I'm afraid, Citizens United has blown a lot of that away, right?
Right,
So
yeah.
the money is wide open, but they haven't come to me yet, I'm waiting for them to call me with the money, it hasn't happened yet, so. I'm
Yeah, so
waiting for that.
you've only spent, 160,000?
I spent 180 in the primary,
180.
mostly my money against 3 million spent against me, so ideas do resonate.
Well, that's the thing. Is so what do you think happened? Just people kind of could see through all that, and did they vote against the other guy, or did they know enough about you to vote for you? You know what I mean?
I attracted the conservative vote. I'm running as a conservative, and there was enough block there to carry me over the finish line. They don't call me landslide for nothing. I won by 173 votes out of 200,000.
Wow.
That's amazing. That's like one of those recount things that you have to do about 10
Yeah.
times.
Hanging Chad.
Oh, jeez, don't bring that
Dan,
back.
how much more difficult is it for someone like yourself, who's an experienced businessman, to run against someone who, as your opponent is a career politician? Isn't the deck stacked for the career politicians in this environment?
I'll answer by saying if money is speech, and I believe it is, that I start with a huge disadvantage, because the career politician, or one who's been in the assembly for 6 years in a failed state and a failed assembly, does not need a promotion, no name mentioned, and begins with the staff and infrastructure, right?
Yeah, but
and connections.
Well, that's the thing is you would think that there'd be the old, throw all the bums out type of thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's why they passed term limits, and so I wonder.
That's
do you-
Sacramento, though.
do
That's
you-
only Sacramento.
That's true.
Yeah.
But do you think in California term limits have worked?
I don't think they have. I think what it's done is given the staff most of the power in California, in my opinion, because the knowledgeable legislators are come and gone, right? And who stays? The staff.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think I think the intent was good, but the outcome is not so good.
They just tried to get rid of Willie Brown. That's really what it's all about.
Oh, yeah, yeah, well, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, after failing as hall monitor in recess at third grade, I figured politics, forget it, I'm not going to go there.
Yeah,
It's not for me.
but sometimes people have to step up, right? If the need is great enough, right?
Well, that's what I was gonna ask you.
Sacrifices need to be made.
See, how did you get into this?
I was incensed by Obamacare. I was incensed by the product and the process. The statement, oh, you've got to pass this before you can know what's into it. That's total, imagine that, that's nonsense. But the people
Don't worry,
bought it.
we'll fill in the blanks later on.
Well, that's
Trust us, Dan. Trust
That's
us.
what they're doing now, by the way, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's see, but I say to that issue, if the people of California, the second district, elect me, I will go back there to be their watchdog. I'm going to represent the taxpayers and the ratepayers, right? And not the people that have owned politicians for years.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Dan. We're talking to Dan Roberts, who's running in the 2nd Congressional District, which, when is Election Day? November 6th. Very good.
It's a Tuesday.
Thank you. Yeah, it's usually, what a coincidence. It seems to always fall on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
All right. We are going to cut to our second commercial break, and here is the second commercial question, and it has to do with being, quote, uncle. Now, you have to be a little bit older to know this one. What was the name of the uncle on the TV show Bewitched? Again, what was the name of the uncle on the TV show Bewitched? And we'll be right back. Good.
Is that it?
Right,
Is
that's
that
it.
a wrap?
That is it.
Good, thank you. That was fun.
Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my co-host, Mark Honfa, Pacific Private Money, California's fastest growing private lender, and Lou Botmal of LPL Financial. And when we cut to before we cut to the second commercial break question, Mark was reminding me that we have celebrated our 100th show. Been on the air for
100, that's
over
right.
2 years.
Our
Yeah,
100th
amazing.
Best of Investing show.
That's right.
Throw the confetti. That's it.
Throw the confetti, exactly.
Thank you, listeners, who've been with us
It's the
for
end
a
of the
while.
convention.
Yeah. Okay, here the trivia theme was the word uncle. And what was the name of the uncle on the TV show Bewitched?
Uncle Buck.
Not Uncle Buck again.
Can I buy the center square?
Can you buy a center square? No, it was Uncle Arthur.
Uncle Arthur.
Played by Paul Lynde.
Paul
Paid-
Lynde, who's a
played
center
by
square.
Paul Lynde. He was a
That's
center
right.
square. That is oh, that's correct.
Hollywood
That's what
Squares.
you're. I
That's
thought you were
why I
like
watched
buying a
that a lot,
vowel
too.
or something. Okay, we're gonna get right into email time.
We get credit for that now? Can I say the lighthouse?
That's true. Exactly. Okay, Mark, we got an email from a listener who says, I talked to a hard money lender last month, but he wanted to charge me an upfront fee. Does your company do the same?
Well, the answer to that is no. And for new listeners, my name is Mark Hanf. The hard money lending industry, years ago, kind of had a different reputation. It was a different style of mortgage loan originator, and it was generally considered to be, the money of last resort. I mean, people who were desperate, or there was something distressed about the borrower, or oftentimes they couldn't get money from the banks, and so they'd go to the hard money lender. It was very, very expensive to get, and some of the people who were in that line of work were less than scrupulous, and so things like upfront fees and bait and switch on terms. A lot of that stuff was pretty common, but nowadays a lot of those guys went out of business when the real estate market and financial markets went sideways in 2007, 2008. And so companies like mine that are new, we formed Pacific Private Money in 2008, and so we just passed our 4-year anniversary, and we've made over 400 loans to real estate investors in Northern California for the purpose of buying, fixing, and flipping property or collecting rental property. So generally speaking, we are now filling a niche that, unlike 10 years ago when people who couldn't borrow from banks, which was a very small slice, would go to a hard money lender and deal with that situation. Nowadays, it's the real estate investment community who the banks are no longer serving, or they're not serving them today. So the private money and hard money loan sector has grown in the last several years, and it's really a different type of industry today. So the good hard money lenders, the good private money lenders, they're not charging any upfront fees. So if you find a lender on Google or the internet or Craigslist or wherever, and they tell you that they need a good faith deposit or an upfront fee, you should run for the hills, because that's not what's that's, in my opinion, that's not what's proper.
So I guess in your case, you don't have to charge them because you keep your fees and everything low enough to where you give the borrower a good deal.
Well,
you still take the risk that they
first
might
of all,
not take the loan.
the Department of Real Estate frowns on upfront fees to begin with, so it's really gray area at best and illegal at worst to charge. One more thing about the upfront fees is that oftentimes are kind of hidden. For example, I oftentimes talk to people in the Bay Area who contact a Southern California private lender because they're advertising, extremely low rates or good rates relative to what other companies will quote. And once they hook you in and they get your application and all that, then they tell you, well, okay, well, you have to pay us a due diligence fee, or we're going to fly up and look at the property. You need to pay for our travel and all of that. And so they start to kind of hook you in. You pay some monies, then they fly up, they look at the property, right? And then they look at it, and all of a sudden the loan terms are, well, that doesn't really qualify for our 7.99% rate, but we'll do it for 12.5% at 5 points. And I swear to God, this happens all the time. And I get a ton of business from people who call me. They're 3 weeks in on a 30-day contract. And they're going, down the road with a Southern California lender for this great price, and all of a sudden find out that they either pulled out completely or the rate and terms completely changed. And so they'll call me up, and I'll have literally, 7 or 10 days, sometimes it's 5 days to close a loan, and they're desperate.
And you can still do it.
And we can still do it, yeah. So
That's
anyway,
good.
Don't pay any upfront fees.
Okay, and Lou, we got an email from a listener who says, I am looking for a new financial advisor. What should I look for when interviewing for one?
Somebody with hair. He's got a great head of hair.
Yeah,
You can't tell, radio
good-looking
audience,
guy.
yeah. I'm jealous.
I was out some buddies the other day. I go, who's got a comb? They all looked at me funny. So okay. Essentially, this is a great question because it really gets down to one item, and that is so many people are paid differently in our industry. I mean, you say the word financial advisor, and you get several different opinions. They could be an insurance-based advisor, a stock-based advisor, an annuity-based advisor. They have certain nuances or things they do. So what you want to go do is say, hey, first question, what's your process? The next question I like telling investors to always ask them, can I get my money back? Wow, that's a novel idea, isn't it? Because what happens is a lot of people get in these investments and they're like, oh, it looks really good on paper.
Yeah.
It could be an annuity-based interest rate or some other things, and they go, oh, your money's locked up for 4, 5, 7 years sometimes.
Yeah.
And I don't like people getting in that trap. I work as a fee-only advisor, which means when people give you their money, they can have it back the next day. That happened with a trust problem a few weeks ago where someone misplaced a trust document and they gave me the wrong one and we had to change the title. So, hey, there's no fees to change, not a big deal.
Wow.
So, but some people work on a commission base, some work on a fee base. Again, insurance products come with some surrender fees. So, how do they work? What's their process? Can I get my money back? What's your outlook? And does it agree with yours? I mean, this is the tough thing right now. Everyone wants to buy bonds and stay in the sand with their heads and say, I don't want to do anything. And say, are there opportunities out there? Are there companies that might come around? Apple's up 70% this year. I don't think it's a buy recommendation at this point. It's just a stock I'm representing that, hey, it's gone up a lot. If that's gone up so much, what's the next thing that could go up, or what's the next sector that could go up? Start asking those questions and engage them and keep engaging them. The problem with engaging a new financial advisor is you have to stay on top of them. You got to call them. You have to hassle them every other day, like some of my clients do. But you do have to sit there and say, hey, let's talk every month, or let's talk every 3 months, or I want to come to your office.
Yeah.
That's very, very poignant, because you want to sit there as things change and say, look, I'm not comfortable with this. I was with a client the other day, and she goes, look, I need to be more aggressive. I'm working towards retirement here, Lou. I'm not working towards preserving all my capital. So let's change our thinking and not look for the next shoe to drop, but look for what the next encouraging opportunity
let me add one little caveat, because one of your questions you said, to get your money back. And,
Right.
I'm assuming that you're not guaranteeing anything, because
No.
people can't